it might be helpful to show you how you can take a plein air painting and make it better. So I had the opportunity to go out for just a short period of time yesterday and do some painting in beautiful Wolfboro, New Hampshire. There's a bandstand that just caught my eye as being very iconic. It's located down at the waterfront and the pier. There were tons of tourists all over the place. It was great. But I had a couple things working against me. First of all, I was uncomfortable. I forgot comfortable shoes. I was wearing my work shoes. I had a mask on, and I just wasn't comfortable. The second thing that was working against me was that I didn't want to stay out for very long, and so I knew I might not finish the painting. And the third thing was my surface. So I did the painting on this gator board panel that I'd made myself. So I've no one to blame but myself. It's gator board sealed with 2 coats of GAC 100, which is an acrylic medium, and then coated with, I think it was 3 coats of gesso that was, acrylic gesso that was toned with a little bit of a warm color. And the problem that I was having was that the paint just kind of slid around on it. It was very hard to get the paint to stick, which really made a great setup for sort of a first layer. So what I'm going to do now is kind of show you how I might, without losing some of the freshness of that plein air feeling, how I might try to improve on it a little bit. And hopefully it will improve on it a little bit. So what I have here is I've pulled up an image that I was looking at on my iPad. So I have that as a reference, and then I have this here. Here's a look at the painting before I start adding, just so that you can get a look at where I was when I started. First of all, I want to get the sky a little more solid. I don't want quite so much showing through. So I'm just going to go back over that again. This is a mixture of cobalt blue and titanium white. Using a little bit of liquid just to get the paint flowing. Gonna leave that cloud in there. I'm just gonna pay attention and carve out a little bit of that shape. So when I was doing this, there was very little of this building that was actually in full sunlight. The only areas that were really getting sunlight was this here and a little bit at the bottom of this rail, and all the rest of it was in shadow. So I'm going to mix up that shadow color again. For the shadow color, I'm using some ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt sienna and some white. I'm really going for the suggestion here, and that's good by me. Still fighting my surface a little bit, so I've switched to a really soft brush, and that's giving me what I needed. The shadow color is a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And I'll tell you, my favorite dark is a mixture of ultramarine blue with an earth color, and it doesn't have to be burnt sienna. It can be burnt umber. It can be raw umber. Um, it can be transparent red oxide. But and then I move it in the direction. So sometimes it feels like warmer and I'll add some yellow, or sometimes it feels like it has a reddish tint and I'll add some red. So, but my go-to gray is definitely, starts with that combination, and then I stretch it and move it from there. So I took a little of that, I added a little more blue and more white paint. I want to try to get this to be a little more obvious where that light is. I'm actually glad that that this is sort of my first layer on the floor, because what I actually saw, there was a lot of light reflected, and I'm going to see what happens when I put some blue sort of skylight over that, but try not to kind of cover it completely, but just kind of give the direction of the floorboards, kind of like that, so that you get that sense of reflection. Yeah, that's good. All right, that gives that sense. There's a little bit of that in the ceiling as well, especially towards the center. Well, you know what? We're gonna redo the ceiling a little bit, because this is, as I'm looking at it, maybe a little too low and you're not seeing it well. So I'm gonna first mix up that dark color. So I saw lots of red in that. So we'll get it, it was sort of darkest closest to the edge. So the joys of getting used to iMovie, I miraculously erased most of the audio for the last part of this video. So you're going to get a voiceover for the rest, with my apologies. Maybe it'll be better. Anyway, what I'm working on here is the trim. I think my eyes played tricks on me while I was actually out plein air painting, and it looked a lot, the parts that are in shadow looked a lot lighter than they really were, and I didn't really see the light where it was. So I'm just kind of correcting some of that and try to get some of that trim in. The trim on the far side, of course, is really completely in shadow and so much darker. The trim that was facing me and closest was getting some reflected light, and so that was lighter. What I wanted to do next, this was a really busy harbor, and there were loads of boats that I initially tried to suggest, but it just felt too busy. So I thought that I would put the dock in, which is there. And so that's what you see me doing here. That's the part of the dock that's upright facing me and therefore was in shadow. And then I'm going to come back in and just lay in the decking, which was in bright sunlight. And so that's what you see there. Um, you know, really just the suggestion of what this area is, without painting every single boat. I'm going to put some of the pylons in. So again, just so that it's identifiable what I'm painting. I'm not sure they were exactly in that spot. It didn't really matter. I just want you to look at that and say, oh, there's a dock right there, right by the water. Here I just wanted to get the water to look a little more vivid, a little more blue, reflecting that sky. And I'm going to go over some of those other boats that I had suggested. I'll also lay in just a little bit of a darker color underneath the dock just to indicate its shadow. I also wanted to warm up the walkway. It was really brick, but going for that nice orangey color gives a nice complement to all the blues that are in this painting. Adding a little dimension to the near hill. I wouldn't do that with the far hill because it's too far away to see that. So in this area, I'm trying to adjust the color of the distant mountain that you see beyond the trees that are in the shoreline. And so it's very blue, and so I laid in a color that I thought was close, but wasn't really happy with it. Here I'm doing some work on the trees that lie uh, beyond the bandstand. Um, in reality, there was a parking lot full of cars, but I did not feel it would be helpful to paint those all in. The other thing that lies beyond this bandstand is an ice cream shop right on the water there that has a number of wonderful blue awnings that you see in that area. And then also has a seating area with some blue umbrellas. So I will get back to that later. What I was doing for now is just to indicate the trees a little more. I've also gone back to the area. There were some low plantings next to the bandstand, and I'll come into that area as well and just try to give those a little more volume and a little more definition by um, bringing in some of the lights on top and building that up a little more. In this area, I wanted to indicate the fencing a little bit more, and then also adjust the banner. So I'm putting in the spindles now. They need to be closer than the ones in front, closer to each other because of perspective. And just a word about that bunting. It's really bright because it's transilluminated. The sun was really shining right through it. So the chroma there is higher than the bunting that's closer to me, and the white is a little bit more intense as well. Just trying to, in this area, set in some of the light that is right on top of the woodwork to really get a sense of the sunlight falling on it and a strong sense of illumination. It's just about now that I noticed that that building that I was telling you about in the distance, the ice cream shop, is in the wrong place. And again, for the most part, it wouldn't matter, but someone's going to look and say, that's not where the building is. I know that place really well. So I did wipe it out and move it over, even though the building is really just suggested. There's some times where I feel like it's better to be accurate. So there we go, wiping it out. So when I rechecked my reference, I saw that where I had the building was actually a nice tree that I could overlap. And so because it's closer than that distant shore, I'm making it a little brighter chroma, um, a little darker in color, just again so that it feels near. And then I'll go in and again just suggest the umbrella with a little dash of blue paint, uh, and then also draw in some of the building with some of the blue awnings. I wanted to redefine the clouds a little bit, trying to darken up the bottoms just a little bit. I think people often make the bottoms too dark, and I'm sure I do that as well. But they were sort of hardly showing the way I had them before. So I came back in. And then for the tops of the clouds, um, you know, I like to put some kind of warm color into that rather than having it be just a pure white. And so here I think I mixed a little pink. It's hard to see from the video, but there's a little pink in that. And then the key is doing some blending and just trying to vary the shape so that you're not repeating the shape. Um, bringing it up. I often like to try to bring the clouds right off of the canvas so that um, there's not this sense that everything sort of fits perfectly. And that's what I was trying to do there, and to blend them as well. So now I'm going back in where I drew that so it's not a sharp line. And I'm using a soft brush to do this rather than a bristle brush. So this is like a mongoose brush or something along those lines, and blending all the sides of it. So I'm putting a little detail, just the edge of the woodwork, again, just to give some dimension to it. Draw that line across. I think it's also about now that I realize that it's in the wrong place, that if you look at the top where the angle is, I haven't drawn it in alignment at the bottom. And so that felt like an easy enough fix that, that I could do. And so you'll see me come in and, well, not yet. So I'm drawing the same kind of edging on top, a little bit of that shadow. Yep, here's where I noticed the mistake. I'm like, uh-oh. So easy enough. Just bring that shadow, darker color that's facing me a little bit further to the left. I didn't really have to move the post. That was actually in the correct position. It was really just where that turned. So I indicate that vertical. But the stair that was in front of me also had to be extended. And so I just extended that line on the top. And then you'll see me extend the stair as well. A little bit of that light color. So here's where I decide to correct that drawing mistake with the hill. And I look at it and I go, yeah, I finally got the color pretty much where I wanted it. But someone looking at that is going to say, oh, no, no, that's not the shape of that mountain. It was easy enough to fix. Just brought the sky back. And now the mountain looks like it's supposed to. So here's our end result. I think that the colors are more vibrant. There's much more of a sense of dimension. It's just a more pleasing painting overall. Some of that warm underpainting still shows through. You're definitely still seeing some of what was there before. But overall, I think it's improved without necessarily straying from the spontaneity and sort of looseness of that plein air painting. I'd like to thank you for watching. I'd love to hear your feedback, and please comment below and subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot.